Hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to a Saturday night here at the Six Screens up in Boston. Boy, I have to tell you, again, I'm excited. I mean, aren't you excited? Aren't you excited to see so many people leaving the Watchtower? They are hemorrhaging. And this week, I mean, some of the news coming across, I can't believe the amount of posts I've seen on some of the forums online. I've never seen it in 18 years. We discussed so many things here at the Six Screens, but the subject of beards, the Watchtower now is going to allow it. And we'll be talking more about it tonight on JW World News, but I'm sure you'll probably speak up about it on Anne Marie's program as well. But really, it's just flabbergasting the witness world. Yep, as you heard me right, the Watchtower is now letting the brothers grow a beard. So that's something new, but it's rocking the witness world. It's causing divisions. Oh, yes, it's causing divisions. Anne Marie, you there with us?
I'm right here with you, my brother.
All
How's
right.
everything going there?
Yeah, well, anyways, you heard the news about the beards, right?
I'm waiting for the yardstick to come in. Wait a minute, the ruler. Oh, wait a minute, the measuring tape.
Well, no, that's right.
About beards.
Oh, yeah, well, it's interesting. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people talking about that tonight. It'd be interesting to hear what they have to say. But anyways, I'm glad you're with us, and I'm going to kind of cut you loose. Anything in particular out tonight you're going to be talking about?
Well, Stephen came up with the idea 2 weeks ago, and I really liked it. He said he wanted to hear a show based on what were you told that you fell for? What bit of advice did you follow from Watchtower that really messed up your life? And I think that's a good one because I think all of us were counseled not to do this or we should do that. And years later, we are so sorry. What advice did you follow that Watchtower gave you, either from a brother, a sister, an elder, heard at the assembly?
Well, sounds good to me. I like it. So I'll step back here, and it's your program. So you do your thing.
Thank you, my brother. Are you hearing an echo at all?
Let me just do this, and then tell me if you can hear me when that going on. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna try something here. I'm just gonna mute this. Just give me a second.
so, and I was talking to his sister, and she said something about what did I want to do when I got older, and I told her, I never had told anybody, not even my mother, that I wanted more than anything to be a teacher. And she looked at me like I had rocks in my head. And she said, what are you thinking? Armageddon's coming. Didn't you see the awake? And I didn't know what she was talking about. And she shoved the awake at me, the May 22nd, 1969 awake at me. And she shoved it at me and she said, look at that. And it showed some young kids. I remember a boy with glasses, and it said something about young people of today have to face the fact, face the fact. Basically, that I would never live to grow up, never live to have children, never live to graduate high school or have a career or anything. Basically, my life was in an hourglass. And it was so sad because I look back and I try not to feel upset, but I had to watch my children grow up. I watched my grandchildren grow up. Now I have four or five great grandchildren. And I'm like, holy turkey brain, seriously? That's crazy. And the Watchtower stole from us our future and the life and the career that we could have had. And I'm just so glad, Brother Rick, that your father, thank you, Lord, that he supported you in doing what you wanted to do. And you wanted to do broadcasting, and you're good at it. Anybody have any comments, thoughts? What did the Watchtower tell you not to do or that you had to do? Like, don't marry that person. They're not in the truth. They have to be in the truth or else you can't be with them. I know people that married the wrong person because, oh, well, and it's sad. A lot of people gave up the love of their lives. They couldn't go to prom. Anybody have any thoughts? This show is about you. Any thoughts? Or go ahead.
Hey, Marie.
Hello.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Hey, Stephen. I was wondering if you were there.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
Hey, I want to tell you really quick. I didn't hear any audio on YouTube, so I don't know if you guys know about that and if you're working on that. There wasn't any audio.
Hold on, Stephen. There's audio on there. It was on your end. It was also on
Okay.
but the audio was fine. The video was fine. So it's on your end. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And then I would say, now this wasn't true of me, but I would say the council and the tone that was set did not have children. And I can tell you firsthand that was a very strong sentiment the entire time that I was coming. And I even know a sister who, just like you just said, Anne Marie, she married someone who ultimately is either asexual or homosexual, I don't know which. And she stayed in that marriage all those years with never being able to just have a regular, normal relationship for all those years because Watchtower said that's what we do. And then secondly, they were encouraged not to have children because the end is going to be tomorrow. It's right around the corner. You don't want to bring children up to this wicked world and all of that. And now she is in her mid-60s. And I talked to her a few years ago. I bumped into her, and she's very bitter. Just very bitter about her whole life, about being raised a witness, about the person that she married and staying in the marriage as long as she did. And I told her, and I was a teenager, I told her I think that she should, get divorced and move on with her life. But she didn't. And she's also very bitter that she didn't have children. So at this point in her life, she should have grandchildren. She has no children. And basically, outside of some immediate family, which are not witnesses, there's nobody to really assist her in life. So it was a lot of bad advice that really had wrecked people's lives.
Oh, Stephen, that is so sad. I remember, I don't know if anybody remembers, but Rutherford, as far as I remember, was the first one to talk against having children until the new system. And I think that was right before he died, maybe 47 or I don't know, somewhere in the late 40s. He gave a talk and he released the book called Children. And it was about basically a couple, John and Eunice, I think, was a kind of a light blue book, if I remember. And it was all about, you know, put Jehovah first, you know, don't tie yourself down to this old system. And I remember that when I was 7 years old, my mom sent me to an apartment in our complex to give something to this older brother that lived in our complex. And he had the door open because it was a hot summer day, and he was sitting alone in his Barcalonger and just sitting there. And I just had this sense of loneliness and depression, because I'm real sensitive to stuff like that. And he was all by himself. And I walked up to him and I said, "You seem so sad and lonely. What's wrong?" And he said, "I am lonely." And his wife was at the store or something. And I said, "Well, why don't you tell your where are your grandchildren?" And he started getting tears welling up in his eyes. And he said, "I don't have any grandchildren." And I looked at him thinking, this guy's older than my grandfather. What do you mean you don't have grandchildren? And I said, "Why don't you?" I'm 7. I said, "Why don't you have grandchildren?" Because it didn't make sense to me. And he looked at me and he said, "Because we never had children." And I looked at him like I just couldn't understand. And I said, "Why didn't you have children?" And he said, "Because we were trying to put Jehovah first and we were going to have children in the new system." And I just looked at him like he's an old man. He was an old man, lonely and sad. And it's like, where's the joy? Go ahead, dear.
No. I'm just agreeing with you. And people, and this is what makes me angry, Marie. When you talk to people who are witnesses today, they don't know any of this stuff. They don't understand why we're angry, why we're upset. They don't understand that our whole lives were basically taken from us. Just like that gentleman, he didn't have kids because the Watchtower set a tone that you're not putting God first if you're having children. And like you said, Anne-Marie, that came from the headquarters. Because if you remember, not only were you highly discouraged from having children, of course, if you had children at Bethel, you're immediately booted out. But they didn't even want you to get married. There was a long stretch of time where that was highly discouraged. If you wanted to get married, it was like you were putting your carnal lust ahead of your service to God. I think it was Franz, when he got married, it was either Franz or it was maybe Noor, one of those two presidents who got married, and that kind of broke up that tone there at the headquarters that you shouldn't even get married, less known have kids. And to these new witnesses, they don't know these things.
Yeah, it was true. It was Noor. And in fact, there was a Bethelite who had been there for quite a while, and everybody knew the rule. You couldn't be married or get married or else you wouldn't be there. But then when Noor got married, all of a sudden the rule was different. And this guy, this Bethelite, if I remember correctly, kind of jokingly said, "Oh, you fell in love. Now you know what it's like. So now we can get married." And Noor kicked him out. Made him leave. The poor guy, I mean, just for kind of kidding him. He wasn't, and that's a sad, sad thing. That's a sad thing. Go ahead.
Very sad. No, that's very sad. I just don't agree with what you're saying.
Well, I don't.
I know that you mentioned, and here's the irony. So they set this tone about not having children, right? So now you have the issue where they don't have any growth. They have negative growth. They have people leaving like crazy. And it seems like the only ones they're bringing in are, the children that they're having. But they are also the ones who discourage you from having children. It's just really funny how crazy they are. They are out of their minds bananas.
Absolutely. And I don't know if anybody ever saw the 1986 video that Marjorie, and I forgot what her husband's name was, he was an elder and his wife who came out of the organization, I believe around maybe 84, 83, 84. And when they woke up, it was huge because nobody really was putting it out there, information about how wrong and unchristian and evil Watchtower was. And they put all their money into writing a book called Witnesses of Jehovah, which I don't think you can find it anymore. And then they put out this video, and it looks kind of cartoonish and amateurish, by today's standards, but they did it themselves. And the video, you can still find it on YouTube. It's just called Witnesses of Jehovah, and it starts with the whole history. And what was so sad was in the beginning, they show a protest march in front of Bethel in Brooklyn, New York, when they were still there. And this one lady said, I gave up babies. I gave up children. And you could tell she was so regretful. And a lot of them, you know, had given up children, having children. When I had my first baby, I remember the sister and brother came to visit me. And the sister, you know, was saying how lucky, not lucky, but, oh, you know, how precious you have this beautiful little baby. And I'm looking at her thinking, you know, she's like 15 years older than I am. When are you going to have kids? And she got all, I'm not going to have children in this system. And I said, why not? And she says, because I'm not going to go through the pain you went through. And I'm looking at her like she is crazy. She goes, I'm going to wait for the new system. Of course, this was way before 1975. And I just remember looking at her like, really? I bet she never had a kid.
Yeah, and I remember in the original congregation that I was born and raised in, there was a strong sentiment there. And if you did have a kid, they definitely looked down on you as you were not spiritual because you had a kid. They really did. And then when you brought your kid, you know, to the meeting, and kids are kids, and they shouldn't be expected to just sit there during some 2-hour meeting and never move a muscle and never open their mouth and say something. Oh, they would just get all over you, and everybody would turn around with a scowl and basically run you back into the coat room, and you sit back there almost like you're being penalized because you brought a child to the meeting. It was just a terrible situation. It really was. It really was.
That you know, it's funny how when you look back, you know, they always say hindsight is 20/20. At the time, it's like, oh, we're reaching for new privileges. Oh, yeah, what do they say? Reach for something more. It's like, you know, always do more, do more, do more. I was so gung-ho in the ministry when I was 9 years old, making my own arrangements. You know, I was such a faithful little witness, all the meetings, studying for all the meetings. Remember that? I don't know if you remember if they do this anymore, but we used to have to take a test every month, because you had to make sure.
Are you talking about the written review?
Is that what that was called? Yeah.
That's what we called it, written review, yes.
Yeah, I think that is what it was called. You know, and I was so faithful when getting in trouble, witnessing in school, and they're always talking about pioneering, and the highest thing was to be able to go work at Bethel and boo-hoo, boo-hoo. But the thing is, it's like you're young for a while. You're strong and healthy and have energy for a while. And they just want to suck every bit of it out of you for them and for their glory.
Yep. And one last thing when we're talking about the kids, when we talk about the negative sentiment that they have towards kids, let us not forget what Stephen Lett said in his talk. He said numerous things that were very nasty about children. One of them was how selfish they are from the womb, that everything is mine, mine, mine. And I never experienced that with any kids that I know. They were always very sharing. And then, of course, the statement that babies are little enemies of God. So they still have a very nasty and negative attitude towards children. And that alone just tells me how disconnected they are from the Jesus that's represented in the Bible, who the night before his execution said, let the young ones come to me, for the kingdom of the heavens belongs to them. And here you have a sitting governing body member making a speech that could be viewed by millions of people, where he's saying that babies are enemies of God. So these people are really demented.
Look at those little innocent, aren't they so cute? Those are little enemies of Jehovah. I could not believe that came out of his mouth.
Me either. And I asked witnesses about that, and they lied and said, oh, he never said that. I pulled up the video that I managed to find, right, that was posted on jw.org. It was on an assembly It was on day one in the morning session. Somebody even put the timestamp. I put it right there. And then it was, oh, well, see, you misunderstood. What he meant was, and they started trying to explain. I said, no. If you call somebody an enemy of God, that's pretty clear. I don't think there's any explanation that needs to be given. These people hate babies. That's insanity.
It is insanity. It is. And, you know, it amazes me that these, I call them Watchtower drones, because they are so in their programming, and anything that causes any kind of a shudder or a glitch or static in their programming, they'll say the stupidest, craziest thing to make it okay with their programming, so everything flows nice and mellow. We don't want to rock the boat. I'll never forget this one brother said so many years ago, we don't need facts. We have the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. I remember, I believe it was a governing body member or somebody close to that. And they were asked why witnesses don't participate in theological debates. And the response was, we don't need to debate because we have the truth. And I'm thinking to myself, if you have the truth, that's exactly why you need to debate, because you want to share the truth with others. But they know they don't have the truth, so they want to stay as far from that kind of thing as possible. Can you imagine Stephen Lett or Anthony Morris? I know he's not there anymore, but he was. Or the one that testified in the Australian Royal Commission, Jackson, I think.
Jeffrey Jackson.
Can you imagine them actually trying to debate an Old Testament scholar or a New Testament scholar? They wouldn't last 3 minutes. With the foolishness that comes out of it, they wouldn't last 3 minutes.
You could picture it though.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen Jackson, or whatever his name is, I apologize if I get the name wrong. He looked like a complete idiot just testifying in court on the Australian Royal Commission. He was asked by the judge things he said was in the Bible. He couldn't find the verse. And then he'd find these verses and he'd read them with this air of, I'm the expert on the subject. And then that judge, and they don't call him a judge, I forgot what they call him, he took him down a few verses, just had to do with that 3-witness rule. He said, well, what about down here where the woman is raped in a field? She cries out, nobody hears. And then when she goes back to the city and says she was raped and she cried out, and they still went and they stoned this man. And here you have the sitting governing body member, and he couldn't answer that question. He had to get back to the judge on it. That's what I mean. These guys wouldn't last 3 minutes in a real debate with a New Testament or an Old Testament scholar. They wouldn't last at all. They would show themselves to be the idiots that they really are.
And it's really, really sad. A lot of people have really pointed out that Watchtower is really dumbed down the rank and file, but they dumbed down themselves. And for people to really see who's really leading them, they have to be completely hypnotized for them not to see, or else they just flat out don't want to see. You don't see what you don't want to see.
They don't want to see. Because if you remember, Amber, we talk about dumbing down, and I mentioned this to a person. If you remember going back just a few years, they used to produce the Watchtower. They had the regular study edition, and then they had what they called the Simplified, right? And then they took the Simplified away, and they took the regular Watchtower, and they just dumbed it down. So it's somewhere between where it used to be and the Simplified version. That's an example right there of just showing how they've dumbed things down.
When Rick and I were children in the Watchtower, they used to brag that they used college-level grammar in the Watchtowers and in the books. And that was a lot of why a lot of the witness kids got scholarships to good colleges, because we were raised to start speaking and thinking and defending our faith on a college level. We knew words that most of kids our age did not know. And now it's like dumb.
Yeah. Totally.
Like kids our age didn't know what symbolic meant and figuratively meant. And, when you're 7 and 8 years old, you're not expected to speak that way. But we did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I was thinking, just now, going back to what you were your overall thinking. Just how much when you don't get an education, there is so much that you just won't learn, and it's not just about like Watchtower always likes to paint it like, oh, you're just being materialistic and greedy and you just want to get a degree and climb the corporate ladder and make a lot of money. That's not it at all. There is so much to learn about life. I was talking to somebody just the other day and he was just telling me what book he was reading and what book I was reading. And he just went and he was talking about things that I just was completely oblivious to. That I guarantee, had you gone to college in some class, you would have had English lit or something, and they would have talked about some of these authors and some of these books and the ideas that were presented and how they changed the way the world thinks. But of course, we wouldn't know because we didn't go to college. So it's not about solely making money, as if there's anything wrong with making money. And Watchtower's got a lot of shame to kind of tell somebody don't make money when they're sitting on billions of dollars. So don't get me started on that. But the point is, there's so many things that we just were not exposed to because we didn't take up the opportunity to go get a higher education.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to some people, I guess the first 6 months I was out of Watchtower, I was just trying to figure out how to be a normal adult. And I wasn't. I was so immature. And I was at a small dinner party, and the adults, the other members, about 6 people, were having a normal adult conversation. Of course, they were all high school graduates, college graduates, been in the world, quote unquote. And I'm sitting there smiling, looking at each person as they're commenting, and I'm feeling completely like a fish out of water. And every once in a while, they'd kind of look at me like, why are you just sitting there? And I was trying desperately to think of some sensible comment that would help me not look so stupid. And I finally said something. It was maybe 3 or 4 words or one sentence. And the lady on my left looked at me quizzically and she said, you know, Anne-Marie, you don't look like you're stupid, but you kind of are, aren't you? And I will never forget this. Because this woman was not being rude at all. She was just simply being observant. Like, you don't look like you're stupid, but you kind of are, aren't you? And I'm like, Lord, help me figure out what it means to be a grown-up. Because I didn't know. I felt like I was 3. I can't be the only one.
I feel that way. I take acceptance that that statement was rude. She could have said that much differently. And if she was really a good person, she could have just pulled it to the side and just had a conversation. So that I think it's that she was being rude. But I feel that exact same way. I never feel when I'm in a conversation. So, for example, this past Thursday was my company's holiday party. And they call it a holiday party. They never even reference holiday. It's really just bring everybody together, have a meal, have some drinks, sit back and relax and just kind of enjoy things for a hot minute. But I never really feel like I have anything to bring to the table because they're so far ahead of me because they are college educated. And then after the college education, they were able to just advance in various things and travel the world and do things that I hadn't done. And so, yeah, I feel the same way. I feel hard pressed to feel like I'm making any kind of meaningful contribution in a conversation. So I know that exact feeling, and I have a feeling it'll probably be like that. My life, to be honest.
Yeah, it's that sense of awkwardness.
It is. And that is a part, as you know, that's a part of the whole cult training method. And this is why even if people leave, some of them come back because they just don't feel comfortable anyplace else. You just don't fit in anyplace else.
Well, now I don't worry so much, but I am still acutely aware that somehow...
me as well.
Excuse me?
Well. No, I said me as well. Like I said, I was just at this party on Thursday, and that's how I felt the whole time I was there.
You know, all of those school functions, school dances, the prom. We used to have Sadie Hawkins dance, where the girl chooses the guy. They used to, in the old days, all parents would send their kids to dance class just to know the basic function of being at a dance. And then there was always, in the class, there was always a dance. Now you're going to practice. And the boys would, have to wear a suit and the girls would have to dress nice. So that when the time came, when you're at a graduation or a wedding reception, which we've all been there, you don't feel like a stupid idiot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell you, Anne-Marie, I was born and raised, and I was so awkward, and probably still am, around the opposite sex, because just like you said, we didn't get that exposure. The whole point of those dances, the sock hops, all of that kind of stuff, is so that you have exposure, so that you do feel comfortable. You know what to do. You know how to, as you said, take a lady's hand and take her on the dance floor and dance, and how to talk and all of that. Well, in Watchtower world, they kept us completely separated, so we didn't really know how to integrate and associate with the opposite sex. And then when you're of marrying age, if you look at a sister for too long, you're engaged to her. And then even if you get married, you have all of this programming in your head about how you're supposed to treat the opposite sex, and that sex is bad, and it's the worst sin in the world is to commit fornication, and then how do you turn that off so that you can be intimate. And then, as you know, Watchtower even regulated activities in the bedroom. So we are so messed up. Those of us that's born and raised or been around, we are so messed up, Anne-Marie. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's the simple things of the social mores, decorum, simple manners, social skills. Like a lot of guys don't know that when you're walking down the street with your girlfriend or your wife, you should always walk on the outside. You're protecting her from danger. They don't know how to put out their arm. There's just basic things like when you walk upstairs with your woman, if you're going upstairs, you always walk behind her in case she stumbles and falls, you catch her. If you're going downstairs, you're supposed to go in front of her in case she stumbles, you can catch it. There are just so many little basic things that normal people know. And witnesses, it's like we were so incredibly, I'm sorry, I'm going to say ignorant, because we weren't taught.
Yeah.
It was all like,
we weren't educated. Right. And then add to that, so we weren't educated. But add to that, Anne-Marie, if you're a male, you automatically become viewed as a male, I guess I'm going to say sexist pig, because in your mind, you're supposed to take the lead. You're the boss. You make the decisions. You're the head of the family. You. And then once you come into the real world and you walk into a situation thinking simply because you're a male, you're supposed to be able to, run this situation or take control or whatever. And people look at you like, you better sit yourself down and be quiet. You don't have the education. You don't have the experience. You don't know what you're doing. You just think because you're a male, you're supposed to do. And you say, well, oh my goodness, where does this chauvinistic behavior come from? Well, that was spoon-fed to you from birth if you were a male. And the opposite, I'm imagining, would be true as a female. I mean, I don't know how the females deprogram themselves from that, to be accepted as a colleague and as a peer, and not just to view themselves as I'm supposed to be kind of the second-class person and take the back seat to the male, because that's the programming you've been fed from birth.
It is the programming. It's very, very unhealthy mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And you're always told in one way or another that you're less than. You're nothing. You're never good enough, male or female. Stephan, I just wanted to take the opportunity to invite anyone who might be listening, who might have a thought or a comment or question, a story. Please feel free to hit *6 at any time. Just because we're talking doesn't mean that we don't want to hear you too. Okay, go ahead, Stephen. I like to count on you. I like listening to you. You and Eric, you guys are great. Awesome.
No. I just when you said that, there's so many things that are probably pent up to us all, and then once we come together on Saturday, and then it just kind of opens those floodgates, I was making a list last night because I heard the news about the change in the view on beards, and it's so.
What is up with that?
Well, I mean, the thing. So let me just say this, and we'll come right back. So that just made me sit down and start making a list, and I'm going to just spend time thinking about all the things that have changed. So, like when you and I were younger people, and all the teachings and what's changed from that time to this one, because I think it's important to remind people these are all the things that used to be taught. Now look at where they are now. Now look at all the things that they flip-flopped on and changed their minds on, modified, or just gotten rid of, altogether. So that was the point that I was going to make. What I thought was interesting about this quote-unquote change in beards was we had a Watchtower not too long ago, because I think I was still fully indoctrinated at that point, although I always had questions. And there was a Watchtower article that came out, and someplace kind of buried in there was this discussion about beards. And and what Stephen Letts said, I guess the last broadcast, is that there were still questions that they were fielding from the congregations all over on this topic of beard. Well, the reason why there were still questions is if you go back and you read the article, it boiled down to basically saying that if beards are common and they're the norm in your culture, then it's okay to wear one. And that was all they said, and then they kind of moved on. But that really didn't answer people's questions, because you could have beards in any culture. What makes it normal? What makes it not normal? So in typical Watchtower fashion, they brought up an issue that they didn't settle. And this is why I'm assuming there were still questions on this, and this is how, he presented it. And then, of course, it goes on to say, oh, well, your outward appearance is no indication of your spirituality. Now, all of us know that. All of us have said that. All of us have asked, what makes it the Watchtower think that how you look, or whether you have a beard or not, or what color your shirt is, or what color your bow tie is, what does that have to do with whether you're a spiritual person or not? What does how many hours you had in field service last month have to do with whether you're a spiritual person or not? So it's very interesting how they control the narrative. They say, well, we're addressing this because you guys are writing us about this. And then they say something that all of us knew and all of us have raised. And then if you listen on in the broadcast, he even tells you how to interpret. I mean, you want to talk about cult control. He even tells you how to interpret. And so this is any witness that you talk to, they'll say, oh, well, I don't have a problem with what they said about, beards. We should all be in unity. We should all be in like mind. That's to cut people's, short circuit people's thinking so that they can't think for themselves and say, well, wait a minute, why is Watchtower weighing in on this? Why did Watchtower tell us that the way you look and how your dress and grooming is a direct corollary to your spirituality? No, they're going to short circuit that and have you view the situation the way that they want you to view it. And so I just wonder if people that we've been telling that this group is a cult will see and pick up on that when they hear that broadcast.
That's a good point, and I don't want to get too much into beards because this is going to be on JW World News. But that's a great point. But here's the thing, too, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Is back in the 50s and the 60s, Watchtower had a very black and white, nuts and bolts dress code for brothers and sisters. And the code was every male of Watchtower should look exactly like a high-class lawyer. Perfect haircut, perfect nice suit, white dress shirt, long sleeve always, and nice, perfectly polished shoes. And if he had to wear a coat, should be a nice overcoat. You had to look just like a high-paid, high-class lawyer. and the women,
Okay.
Watchtower sisters, were also expected to look like high-class secretaries for lawyers, legal secretaries. Their hair had to be perfect. Their dress had to be perfect. Their shoes. That's why the sisters always had to wear high heels in service. High heels in service. And I'm talking, thank God we were allowed to wear 2.5-inch heels or little shorter heels. But can you imagine? That was the strict dress code. And that was why further, no beards. And back then, mustaches were severely frowned upon. But of course, going way back, Rutherford he hated Charles. I don't know why he hated Charles Russell, but he did. And he made everybody get rid of beards. Everybody had to be clean shaven, no mustaches. And it was a big deal that little by little brothers got to have mustaches. But anyway, the whole thing of what you said about absolute down to the last hair, perfect control over your person. No tattoos, no beards, no long hair. They're measuring your sideburns in the 70s. Go ahead, my dear.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Sorry.
Never be sorry. Never be sorry. I just want to make this show is about you, Stephen and Eric and Apostle Babe and Dick Borgie and everybody else and anybody else who wants to comment. This Touched by the Tentacles show is for you. So if you're wanting to talk, I just want to make sure. Does anybody want to comment? You guys are all free to start thick. Don't we love listening to Stephen? Stephen, I'm listening to you. I'm enjoying this very much. Please.
Yeah, I was really.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I thought I heard somebody coming in. Yeah, I was really kind of taken aback, but it doesn't really shock me. It is, however, very disappointing because all of the major issues that they have in that organization, such as the CSA, and they don't chime in on that. They don't discuss that. They're not making any changes with that. They go and find this low-hanging fruit, meaningless stuff. Oh, you can have a beard now. All to kind of deflect from the real things that they need to be addressing that they obviously are not going to address. So even from that perspective, it was very disappointing that this is what you choose to all of a sudden get, new life after prayerful consideration. I just said to myself,
I'm sorry, but they're so full of it. I need a bigger shovel. For anybody who is not aware, Stephen mentioned CSA is for child sexual abuse, that we are knowing more and more. It is no exaggeration that pedophilia, child rape, child molestation, child sexual abuse is absolutely rampant. The Watchtower literally is infested with child sexual abuse pedophiles. Yes. Anybody wanted to comment? I heard laughter in the background. It made me think of Dick Borgie. That's his laugh. Anybody?
Hey, Anne Marie, this is Rick. Tell the audience what the subject is tonight. You have some new ones coming in now that weren't listening when you first brought it up, but just reiterate what the subject is and see if we can't get them talking about that.
Thank you, my brother. Stephen and we're just kind of talking about, is there any advice that you got from an elder or the Watchtower, either at an assembly or in the Watchtower study or whatever, any advice that Watchtower gave you to do or not do that you followed and you really regret it now? Like, for instance, you were told, oh, put Jehovah first, don't have children. Oh, put Jehovah first, you don't have time to get an education, or don't follow this career. Any advice that went against your natural inclination because you wanted to be a faithful servant of Jehovah, advice that you followed from Watchtower that you look back and you regret it?
I have an idea.
What's that?
Well, I was a single brother. I was in severe pain physically. I just lost my job. And I was counseled you need to start going out in field service 3 hours a day in regular pioneer, and you'll get a job in no time flat.
Well, what about the pain you were in? What the heck?
I didn't do what they said, so I figured, but I finally got a job, by the way. I just wanted to tell you this, Anne-Marie, is that who I'm talking to?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I want to make sure. I don't know. Your voice gets me mixed up. Sometimes I think you're Rick. No, I'm joking. But
I mix myself up too.
on Tuesday, I'll be going to my mother's funeral, and my brother, my younger brother, who I converted, who's an elder now, will be there. So I'm trying to figure out what things I will say to him. I don't know if to say, hey, where's your beard? Or 57, 57, 57, which is the amount they want people to contribute every month. So I'm trying to figure out how I deal with this because, again, my mom, one of her last wishes to me, it was about 2 years ago, she said, you got them into this, you get them out. So I've got some heavy things to do on Tuesday. If anybody has any ideas they want to give me, those are my best because I don't want to be too affronted with them. But quite frankly, I don't even want them to leave Watchtower. I've had it with them, you know. Hey, I've got 5 other brothers, okay? So I can do without one.
Okay.
Trust me. That's
Yeah.
Well, I would say this, my brother. If this person is an indoctrinated witness, and if they're an elder, it sounds like they probably are.
Indoctrination. That's the point. I started the indoctrination.
Yeah, I know. But there's probably nothing that you can say that's going to change anything, especially on that particular day, because he's probably going to be so focused on that. However, what I would do is what the Bible talks about: killing a person with kindness. You know, heaping fiery coals on a person because you're being kind to them. I would just be kind.
I don't roll that way. It's going to be somewhere in between. That's why I said either I'll say to him, "Hey, where's your beard?" or 57, 57, 57. Okay. No, I'm not going to do the kindness thing because that would be hypocritical. Because he's done a lot of crap to me, okay? Before and after his elder. He invited all the Catholic side of the family to his daughter's marriage, but not me and my wife. We're not disfellowship. We just stopped going to meetings. So what I have to put up with the next 2 years, everybody asked me, why weren't you at his daughter's wedding? Why weren't you there? And I had to look at my, God, crap in heaven. I have to explain to everybody what was going on in Randy's stinking little mind, my brother's stinking little mind. Little mind is the operative phrase. So no, he's not going to get any kind of. He's going to get.
I would say.
Think about.
I can tell you this from personal experience. I had a situation like that happen to me. I had a son who graduated high school.
By the way, who am I speaking to?
This is Stephen, and I'm going to be extremely brief so that other people can chime in. And the bottom line is, I wasn't invited to my son's high school graduation. I didn't know when it was, and there was another witness who was there, and he called me. He said, "Why aren't you there?" And so I told him, I said, I wasn't notified. I wasn't contacted. I wasn't invited. He went to that person.
I'm there with my stepdaughter's high school graduation for a servants meeting, and she actually was one of the speakers at the graduation, okay? Because of a servants meeting.
Right. So all I'm going to say, and then I'm going to let other people talk, is the kindness that I showed, you know, because I could have went into it and I could have opened up with both barrels. And, I went the kindness route, and that resulted in people contacting my ex-wife and saying what a bad person she was for not including her father in his father in his son's graduation. So it actually backfired on her. It didn't backfire on me. So you might want to give the kindness part another, or at least just think about it. It's totally your call, obviously, but just think about it. Okay, somebody else can chime in.
I'm glad you're giving me something to think about, but you know what? He needs to be woken up. I'm not into letting people feel good about themselves at this point. Watchtower is proven to be a demonic organization. I'm not going to talk to someone like it's not. I'm going to give him something to think about. Anyway, I have some deep thoughts about this, and maybe I'll share them later on Rick's other show. But I'm going to try to watch this Pittsburgh Steelers lose right now. So I'll talk to you all later. Hey, Marie.
Uh-huh.
Love you all.
So is everything copacetic? I always worry about what is our main purpose when we go somewhere where we're going to maybe be challenged, and it can be difficult. You guys okay?
I went to a funeral for my cousin just maybe a year ago, and of course I haven't been to a meeting in probably 5 or 6 years. And she was still a witness, although I don't necessarily believe that she really believed it anymore. And so there were a lot of witnesses there. Nobody really accosted me in any way, but they certainly came up, and I talked to them very briefly. And there was something that I think we all probably agreed upon, is that we're all happier after we left. So I didn't have to try to fake anything. So when people ask me, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm great. Quite frankly, I don't think I've ever been better. And it was real. The smile was real. My attitude was real. I left Watchtower for doctrinal reasons. I didn't leave for any other reason. And I could, I well rehearsed all the reasons that I left. So if I needed to talk to somebody about why, or if they asked me a question, I could defend myself. So there was no reason for me to flee or to cower down or to do any of that. And so people would come and I would engage with them, and then they'd basically leave, and that's just kind of how it was. So I don't know. I still think killing people with kindness is probably about the only option that we have, because they're already going to have their defenses up when we come around. They're going to have their defenses up, so they're not really listening to anything you say. So the only thing you really can do, in my opinion, is just be kind.
Well, it sounds good. It's just hard. If I wanted to make sure everybody was finished saying what they want to say. I don't want to interrupt, but it's. I always think, what is my main purpose? Because you never know what is going on. In Randy, is that his name? Your brother's name? That's going to be at the funeral.
This is Stefan. The gentleman that was talking said he went to watch the football games. I'm not sure if he's still on.
I missed that part. I am so sorry. Yeah, okay. It's so hard to be in our position. We have every right to be angry and every reason, but we never know what's in their heart. We never know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have any thoughts for this gentleman? I really appreciate your talking to him.
Yeah, well, I was the one that was saying just be kind, because if his brother knows that he's opposed to the religion, he's going to have his defenses up. There's nothing that he's going to say that is going to make any kind of difference. So my approach would be just to be kind, just to treat him as anybody that you would treat whose mother passed and they were having a funeral. Just let your humanity out and try to put everything else on the shelf for that night, and just be a human trying to show some compassion to another human. His mother did die. So just view it that way and move on, because there's nothing that he's going to say that's going to make him think twice about this religion. So
it's really hard.
Wasted effort.
No, I'm glad you talked to him. You were very kind and understanding. Oh,
So
sorry.
Sometimes what happens is when you're kind and other people ask you, questions like, "Hey, why didn't you go to your kid's graduation?" Say, "I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't invited." They're going to go back to that person, and sometimes what they say to that person is going to go pretty far, because their defenses are up against us as ex-witnesses. Their defenses are not up against other people. They don't see them as a threat, or that they're some traitor because they left the religion. And the things that they say might actually sink in and give them something to think about. So.
You always have very interesting things to say, great comments, and I really like your insight. And I hope no, it's true. There's a lot of reason why I enjoy talking to. Not that I don't enjoy talking to everyone listening, but you're interesting. And it's kind of hard to kind of be in the middle because sometimes I'm so angry. Like we were at a wedding and my son and daughter-in-law shunned me severely. And we're at this wedding and my husband wanted a picture of all of our kids. Well, my daughter-in-law is not my child. And so she got her feelings hurt. And she let my daughter know that her feelings were hurt. And when I found out about it, I'm like, well, I don't want her feelings to be hurt. But here she is wanting everybody to know her feelings are hurt. And yet she treats me like crap for years.
Right.
But that's okay. It's like her feelings are so important. And I'm thinking, I mean, I'm not the best Christian in the world, and I know I should be kind, but sometimes I'm thinking, what the hell? We're supposed to feel sorry for you because your feelings are hurt because we wanted a picture of kids that didn't include you, but you can be in a hospital room with 12 other people where I'm at and completely not even look in my direction and walk out the door with your nose up in the air. You think my feelings don't get hurt? Raising my grandchildren to think that I serve the devil? But my feelings don't matter. But her feelings were hurt. And, and I'm like, okay, this is an example of where Jesus said, treat others the way you want to be treated. We have to be the bigger person. We have to be. And it's hard because sometimes you just want to walk up and say something really bad in their face. It's terrible.
Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Anne-Marie and Stefan. It's Tim calling from Australia. I just wanted to add a quick thought. I'm not sure who the caller was. He sounded a bit like the King of Dots, but
I think it was.
Type of a voice.
It was.
Yeah. Anyway, I can understand his position too, and I can understand yours. What I've kind of self-taught over the years of how to deal with people, and I'm always a person that will let someone get angry first before I retaliate. So, because you want to have the moral ground to onlookers, not that you have to prove anything to anyone, but you don't want to start an argument first. But knowing how witnesses are often very condescending and they'll say what they want to say, you can't be afraid to stand up for yourself, because I think a lot of people, when they first leave and they're getting disfellowshipped or whatever, they never stand up to themselves in front of this false authority. And you have to be firm with these people. You nip that arrogant behavior right in the bud, even if you have to say a swear word, but let them do it first. So you have to mentally prepare yourself. If you're going to rock up at a situation, okay, try to be kind, but if they're going to start something with you, cut it down and cut it down hard, because they've got that mentality. They're better than you and they think they can walk over you, and I can't stand that.
Yeah. So true.
And like, I've got family that always only ever call me whenever I'm feeling really down, and then they have to bring up meetings. And since I've looked into the whole thing and I'm totally against it, I'm mentally trying to think of what I'm going to say to them next time. And I'm not going to be rude, but I'm just going to say, listen, you won't like what I've got to say, but I'm going to say this whole witness, it's a false religion, and I'm going to be mentally prepared. But that's what I'd say to anyone that's in that position. You have to be prepared to stand up for yourself, because these people, especially if they're in a position of power in the congregation, that will walk over you and feel like crap. Thinks nothing of it, Anyway, good conversation, and that's all I've got to say on that. So yeah, thanks.
I know I agree with everything you say, but it's almost like, I don't know about you, but it's almost like you want them to say something. You want them to start something. Give me a reason, that. Give me a reason. But we can't do that. I mean, we can, but there a buzzing? What is that noise? Are we still on?
Someone who is clicking their phone. Don't do that. We'll have you come in right now. Does 706 want to speak up? Go ahead, 706. You're on with us. Go ahead. You're on. Speak up. Go. Go ahead, 706. Speak up. You're on with us. All right. They're muted now, but they kept clicking their phone, Emery. Yep.
Oh, I was wondering because somebody's been trying to call me on the other line. I'm ignoring them. Yeah.
Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hi, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, it's Tim again. Yeah, sorry. I just didn't want to give you the impression that I actually want confrontation. No, it's just something that you have to be mentally prepared for, because these people will often walk over you, and that's just my point there. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tim. But we do have to be a little bit prepared, because we know they are going to say something that, we might have to kind of defend. And so I always visualize it like this. I was in a McDonald's once, and there were some witnesses over in the corner. And when they saw me, they all got really quiet, and they were kind of pointing at me and saying whatever it is that they were saying. So when I got my food, I walked over there. And when I walked over there, they all froze. Their eyes were big as manhole covers. And I asked how they were doing, and how was your mom, and how's this, and how's that, and blase, skippy, blase. And then they asked me how I was doing. I said, oh, I'm great. I was doing this on my way here, on my way there, and this, that, and the other. And then I just kind of paused, and I got ready for somebody to ask me a question, and nobody did. And I realized they were more afraid of me. I wasn't afraid of them at all, but they were more afraid of me. There was a group of them, and I'm by myself. And I realized in that instance that they know if you're a certain type of person, and you no longer associate with Jehovah's Witnesses, there's reasons. And quite frankly, they don't want to know what those reasons are, because they're afraid of it, because it's a challenge to their reality. It's a challenge to their faith, and they're afraid. They just want you to go away. Now, you will have some people that honestly will ask, hey, you don't go to meetings anymore. I had one brother who asked me that. And I told him, and we just kind of went into a few things, nothing major. But one of them was this 1914 generation business. I said, I have been going out in the ministry for as long as I can remember. And that was kind of my pat presentation, that, the world's going to come to an end before this 1914 generation dies. And I said, and I told people something that was a lie. And I said, and I can't keep doing that. So that's why I stopped going out in service, telling them that. I said, what am I telling them? I'm telling them something that this was the truth yesterday, but today it's no longer the truth. I said, I can't keep doing that. And I said, and it made no sense for me to keep going to meetings to be taught something that I know is either wrong or I just can't believe. And I just left it at that. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hostile. So he couldn't do anything but just think about what I said, and it was true. Now, whether that changed him in any way or not, I don't know, but that's just kind of how I approach that. But you're right, Tim, we do have to be prepared, because those kinds of challenges are going to come at times.
I like the part where you said they just want you to go away. They don't want to think, because if you say something that makes sense, there's a part somewhere in the deep recesses of their brain that it's kind of like the old-fashioned pinball machines, tilt. Oh, no. See, drones have to stay in the smooth running of their programming. And people who are actually saying truth and logic, just like that brother said, we don't need facts. We have the truth, which is, can anybody say incongruous? Oh, my God. And I was one of those. And so go ahead.
I think there's a saying that goes something to the effect that the best revenge is a life well lived. And this is the other thing that's a challenge to their reality, because they've been taught and they've come to believe that when you leave, quote unquote, Jehovah's organization, your life is just going to go to hell. And when it doesn't, when you're well dressed and well spoken and you're on your way here and you're on your way there, that's a challenge to everything that they've been taught. They're expecting you to just have fallen apart.
They always have an answer for everything. Your life is supposed to fall apart, you're supposed to get into drugs, be miserable, be on the street corner, homeless and crying with your thumb up your butt. But, and of course, they love it when you commit suicide because they can just use you as an example to tell the rank and file. You see what happens when you leave Jehovah? But God forbid, and how many of us have done this, gone to school. Of course, I never could stay very long, but a lot of ex-witnesses have gone on to college, gotten that education that they were deprived of, and gone on and had great careers. And their excuse, Watchtower's excuse, well, that's because Satan loves to bless his own people. If they were serving Jehovah, he'd be trying to hinder them. But since they did his bidding, now they're like one of his happy people. Yeah, it's like, doesn't matter what you do or don't do. they have a way to turn it around.
Yeah, I could see that, but what I actually am seeing more is more of kind of an envious. I kind of wish, I was doing what you're doing is what I'm seeing more often than not. And if I do get in any kind of conversation with them, I would certainly ask them, what happened to Tony Morris? I mean, this was a governing body member. I remember all of his talks, and he used to say some way out stuff, but, he was a governing body member. He was handpicked by God to be a faithful and discreet. What happened to him? And I'd love to see how they try to worm their way out of that one.
Well, of course, everybody knows I have my thoughts. And I think...
Yeah, but I'm saying that gives people, when they want to get on their high horse about how great this organization is, what happened to your governing body member? I just want to know. I heard he's not around. I don't see him anymore. I even went to jw.org. I can't find any of his videos. What happened? It's those kinds of questions, that really make them have to stop and kind of take a look at things. And whatever answer they come up with, believe me, it's going to be a crazy answer. But it's still going to make them kind of think, how can somebody be a governing body member yesterday and today it's like they never even existed?
Yeah, exactly. I just want to real quick check in with our brother Rick and see how much we've gone over a little bit. My brother, how much time do we have?
Yes, Anne Marie, I'd like to have you take another 15 minutes if you can.
Okay, I just wanted to check in with you.
Yeah, go 15 minutes. That'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Anything further? Because I'm here listening. I'm just like listening. I live Six Screen Saturday. Anybody else want to chime in? Have a thought? Stefan's been giving us a lot of food for thought, which I very much enjoy. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, sometimes I used to say if I had an education, I'd be dangerous. I'm like, wow. So, yeah, you too. What do you want to do, Stephen?
I feel the same way. One thing I thought might be interesting theme for a show is making some predictions about what Watchtower might change next. Like, will they change the blood policy or make an amendment to it? Will they change something about the quote-unquote disfellowshipping arrangement? It might be interesting just to have a conversation, make some predictions and see which ones come true. Maybe the duck can come down from the wall and somebody could win a donut or something.
No, I really appreciate your bringing up that idea, especially about will they ever change their policy? There have been so many debates about if or when Watchtower might change their policy. In fact, I think there was, way back in the early 2000s, there was a group in Watchtower, I think elders and brothers higher up, that actually were trying to work from the inside with governing body to please help them change the Watchtower stand on blood. And there's plenty of biblical evidence. It's very logical, actually. And they will never do it. The bottom line is everybody agrees they'll never do it simply because of the anger. That would be like the last straw because so many have lost children, mothers, and if they go back on it, say, oh, gee, we prayed and we have new understanding, how they always do. And right. I think it'd be bad.
I was thinking about that too, but they could couch it and say, excuse me, they could couch it and say that, the scene of this world is changing and governments all over the world are coming down on Jehovah's people. And one of the issues, they're accusing us of killing people. And so for that reason, we have to, make this change in order to be able to operate in these countries. In other words, make it look like it's really the government that's forcing them to do this, and it's not us, and it's certainly not Jehovah. There's been no change in our feeling about it, but the governments of the world are making us do it. And they could couch that in such a way that witnesses will say, okay, publicly, it's okay to have a blood transfusion, but we know that no real Christian would ever do so. So they could kind of manage to do it that way.
I am so sorry I dropped the phone. That's what I get. It's kind of like when they say, "Oh, we don't disfellowship anybody for getting a blood transfusion." Next breath, they disfellowship themselves.
Right.
Well, they're free to leave anytime they want. No one's keeping them here. They have a way of always trying to make themselves look so freaking innocent, so pious, so humble.
Yep.
But they're so tyrannical and unbending and unmerciful and ready to judge. That's why I call the elders the Gestapo enforcers. They are supposed to be being shepherds who are keeping watch over your souls. How many of who have been hauled into the back room would agree with that?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And then you'll find when you go through something that's difficult for you in your personal life, they're not there for you. They don't have any answers or any suggestions on how you can improve things in your life. And you read the magazines. I was married once before, and when we had marital problems, I pulled out the family book, and we studied the family book. That didn't help anything. It made zero. It was no suggestions in there that were useful. And then when they came out with the newer, updated version of the family book, I think it was blue. I think the original one was green. I read that one, and that one wasn't helpful at all, either. So you can just imagine this organization that claims that it's got an answer for everything, really has an answer for nothing. And then add to that, when you go to these meetings, there's nothing joyful and enjoyable about these meetings. Every now and then I'll hear, if I'm visiting family, I'll hear the broadcast in the background, and you just look at the expressions on people's faces. There's no joy.
No.
There's no joy. There's no happiness. And, I really just think it's just kind of a matter of time as more and more people start to leave, because there's nothing really holding them there.
I don't know how they can do it. Yeah. I saw a picture of a group of people. Somebody took a photograph from inside of the convention. It was like maybe the Cow Palace, some kind of internal convention site. And you could tell, first of all, lots of empty seats. But I remember this one older lady turned on her side, looking like she was trying really hard to pay attention, but she just almost looked like she was forcing herself to listen. And there was this one small young family. I could never get their faces out of my head. It was a young brother with his young wife, and they had a little boy and a little girl, fairly young, and they were both sitting there proper, and all four of them just looked like, are we done yet? Can we leave yet? Are we? Misery and boredom. That is heartbreaking. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, sister.
What's up?
Hi. Did you have something you wanted to share? Hello?
No, I don't have a girlfriend, sadly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to share something? Okay. Hi. Okay. Anybody want to share anything? Have a question or a comment? The floor is yours. It's open. We have a few minutes. We have about 7-8 minutes. Anybody want to share a thought, comment? I'm just glad I'm not in that organization anymore, because at least when I was in, I still believed, and it was still crowded, and lots of smiling, happy faces. I do remember kids getting hauled in the bathroom and beat, but, you know, I never liked that part. I'm always glad I can say I was not one of them. Go ahead.
I want to say something just very quickly on when you said a thought. It was something that I listened to this week, and I don't remember if it was Kim and Mikey or was it Dan and Angela, but it was something, and it was just a quick statement, almost kind of in passing, about, you know, could the governing body be moving headquarters, moving operations out of the U.S. to some other country where they're not going to be under the same, you know, legal standards because of all these lawsuits that they're having to fight, and that they're basically losing. And I'm sure Rick will talk about that later on as well. And that really started me thinking about Watchtower possibly doing that. You know, moving to some country that doesn't have extradition, moving their headquarters and operations over there so you're not under the control of the United States government. That was just something that I gave some thought to this week. I don't know if anybody's ever thought about that or not, or if they feel like Watchtower is doing that. Because my understanding is the Ramapo or the Fish Kill or whatever that project was that Rick was kind of tracking, as far as I know, that was put on hold. And I don't think there was any update. It made me wonder, maybe they're planning to pull up stakes and move out of the country.
We never know, but they've definitely have been on a course of making sure they're taken care of. I mean, you know, if Armageddon, quote unquote, let's just say everything fell apart, if they were still in Brooklyn, there was every reason where everybody could just come on and converge on Bethel and start yelling and screaming and banging and telling everybody that they've been lied to. But it's kind of cool. They sold off the headquarters of God's organization, pocketed the money. All of New Yorkers, especially Brooklyn, were glad to see them go, because look at all the tax dollars that they were being deprived of every year that Watchtower was there. And now they moved to a place with contaminated land, contaminated by nickel or something, surrounded on 3 sides by dense forest and 1 side by a lake, where it is almost impossible to get there. And then they have guards in those big old SUVs with the big guard gate and the big guard gates that, I mean, hello? God's organization? Was Jesus like that? Did he hide?
Right.
No. But, you know, this is what governing body does. But I do remember what they call a morning worship. I don't know why they call the morning speech at Bethel morning worship. You're not worshiping God by preaching your garbage. But he was talking about all the changes, and these will be going here. Talking about Costa Rica and the Philippines, and I forgot where else. And a lot of businesses have outsourced to Mexico, Philippines, and other places. You know, when you try to get customer service for like Amazon or Netflix or any other business, a lot of times you're talking to another country. It's just easier. Watchtower does whatever they do to suit them, whatever takes care of them and their interests. They do not care about you, and they especially don't care about you when you're old and can't work and can't make them look good. As long as you don't have property or anything that they can get out of you, they don't want anything to do with you.
So that's going to be one of my predictions. We can put that on the prediction board. One of my predictions is that they'll move their worldwide headquarters to another country.
Oh, could be. Okay, anyone have any last thoughts? We have about 2.5 minutes left. Because I'm listening. Stephen is listening. Thanks for being here with me, Stephen.
Take it 5 minutes, Anne-Marie. 5 minutes, if you would. I just got a call from a woman to some really big headlines tonight. So just take about 5 minutes, if you would.
Well, I sure will, my brother. Brother Rick has given us another 5 minutes. Everybody take a breath. Anything you have to say, I'm listening. We're all listening. And don't forget, everything we say, it's going to be in the archive. So whatever you might have to say, experience, or thought will be in the archives, and then others will be listening. And you could help a lot of people with what you have to say. Go ahead.
Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. It's Tim again. I just had a thought on what Stefan was saying was kind of interesting about the prediction of them moving country. I was thinking I suppose it's a good thought. Would they have to move the whole headquarters, or would they just have to have a little, just a smaller section for I kind of think that the governing bodies themselves only, that'd be enough just for them to move out, and then they could make up some excuse, Satan's system has made it too hard for them to operate, and that's the only way they can keep the good news going, or some BS. But yeah, that was pretty interesting what Stefan said, I guess.
Well, I really
Tim, I was thinking about. Oh, sorry, Anne-Marie.
Go ahead, my brother.
I was thinking about that too, Tim, and I was thinking of because we learned that from a corporate standpoint, the governing body doesn't technically run the organization. That was a whole long conversation, but we learned that from a bizarre statement that Garrett Loesch made, how he was never connected to Watchtower and he never had anything to do with Watchtower. And that's because from a legal standpoint, they don't actually on paper run anything. The governing body, however many members they are now, it's the ones that are directly underneath, like those helpers. Those are the ones, to the best of my understanding, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, those are the ones whose names are actually on the corporate documents in these various positions. So you would have to move at least that group, out to another country, because I think that the governing body have insulated themselves. And that was one of the things I learned. They made an announcement. I was still indoctrinated, but they made an announcement in how they had changed the appointment of elders, because the elders used to go from like a recommendation from the local elder body up to the governing body. The governing body would approve it, and they're just looking at a name and some numbers on paper. They don't know these people. And then it goes back to the local congregation, and boom, they get appointed. Then the governing body took themselves out of that, and it's the circuit overseer who does the appointment. So they've insulated themselves from a lot of this stuff. But if what hits the fan, it's really those that second tier group. A lot of them we probably don't even know what their names are, but those are the actual corporate officers, so they would have to move.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've got their whole hierarchy of response to anything seems to be financial is the first and foremost. It's always got to be what's the financial. Second is the image, protect the image at all costs, and then kind of underneath that, I suppose, is trying to get new followers. But every decision seems to be a lawyer behind it that they make now. Probably all of this weird stuff, everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of witnesses don't realize that the entire conglomerate of Watchtower, with all their sub corporations or whatever, is all run by the legal department. They have lawyer, what do you call them, attorneys on, on retainer everywhere, all over. And they have the legal department. Everything is about money, power, and control, and protecting their ass and their assets. Excuse me, Rick. But that's just it. And I was thinking, what's to keep them from ultimately becoming like remotely governing everybody? I mean, remember the guy that was the head of the Mormons, the radical Mormons, who was a horrible pedophile, was all about pedophilia. And he gets shown for what he is. He's in prison. It's been proven he did what he did. And everybody is still obeying him. He's still controlling everybody. And he's in prison. And that's just one person. What about the witnesses who think that they're witnesses of Jehovah? What they really are is witnesses of the Watchtower. They're basically Watchtowerites because their God is the Watchtower. They don't realize it. They'll deny it. But they don't just follow one leader, they follow the faithful slave, the governing body. And it's like they're so conditioned and indoctrinated and programmed. Their minds are like mush. I don't think that they have two brain cells left to rub together when it comes to Watchtower. It seems like they can be normal and act normal and function normally in every other avenue. Go to the store, they go to school, they have a job, they take care of their house. But when it comes to the Watchtower programming, it's amazing. You can see that flip, that switch. It just flips them. And they turn into that program, Watchtower drone. Do not interfere with my programming. You will not be successful. It's scary. It's so scary. Okay, we have eaten up our last 5 minutes. Any last words so my brother can get to JW World News? Any last thoughts? Okay, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go back to our dear brother Rick Barron and JW World News. Rick?
I'm right here, Anne-Marie. So, yeah, we'll get going with the news. So, looking forward to that. So, that's coming up here next, right here on the Six Queens Telenetwork. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Appreciate the program tonight. And looking forward to your program in 2 weeks. But we'll hear from you tomorrow. We have a program tomorrow. And, well, Anne-Marie, do it together. And it will be tomorrow beginning at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, we're looking forward to that as well. If you have a story, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, former Jehovah's Witness, and you have a story to tell, and you would like to tell your story tomorrow to a live audience, well, tomorrow, come on in at 2 o'clock, call up Anne-Marie and I, same telephone number that you see on the screen right there right now. Dial that number in, and you can tell us your story of being involved with the Watchtower. So that's going to be good. So we're looking forward to that. So anyways, we're going to end the program here. Let me just make sure that everything is up to spec here, and we're going to do it. And just okay, we got that done. I'm sending links off. I just got a woman call me, and she had some information to share with me. So we're running a little bit late here for the news. A big headline that just happened today. So I don't know if the rest of the ex-witness world is aware of it, but I'm going to share it here tonight. That's tonight, right here on the Six Queens JW World News, coming up next on the Six Queens Telenetwork. All right, let me just get in here and see what's happening here. We do have this one. I'm going to end this program here. So we're going to end the stream right here. Stay with us, though. Just stay on this network. We got a number of programs coming up later on tonight. So end the program